all right, imagine this is
back to back.
yeah, imagine this is like a matchmaking. I don't know. I'm just thinking of like a debutante ball in the 1700s or something ridiculous. And everybody's there trying to find a pair. U.S., who are we going to do business there? Russia's there, UK's there, China's there, etc. Everybody's just trying to find their dance partners. And this is just really weird. Over the last 3 years, what have we heard? Like ever since the Russia Ukraine conflict has really entered its new phase, taken on the kinetic profile. You saw things like Vladimir Putin and Xi coming out at conferences, handshaking, hugging, etc., saying this is the partnership without limits. Uh, you even saw, we'll get into the story. I guess we'll show it after this, but I'll just go forward one, Cameron. Russia gears up for yuan bonds in sight of tighter relations. November 30th, 2025, right? So
Right.
Russia was, as recently as like 8, 9 weeks ago, going to start, issuing bonds on this CNY standard. Um, and then you'd see to like the matching transaction there on the good side would be Russian gold exports into China, just kind of echoing that theme of the gold, backed Shanghai futures inventoried Chinese yuan, right? Russia was gearing up for to fund itself in its war effort on Chinese yuan denominated debt, right? This week, however, this is last night, February 12th, or early this morning. We see this headline floated that, source from the Kremlin itself, there's a memo circulating written this year saying a return to the dollar system in a pitch made for, the Trump administration. So we didn't talk at all about what this new dollar system is, but, leaving that aside for a second, Russia is now saying, hey, or at least in this signaling, if you're a flirtatious attendee of this debutante ball I talked about, you're saying, hey, my dance partner was CCP, but oh, I'm also going to come over here and flirt with the United States and this new dollar monetary order that is emerging. So this whole gold back yuan we talked about, the Chinese international reserve currency, et cetera. You've also got a new dollar system emerging as well. We'll get into it a little bit with our next story, but yeah, this just signals right now everything is still in motion, right? Everybody is still working out and finding their dance partners. I do think in the last 4 to 6 weeks, the the relationship between the UK has, in terms of international trade, has been, I'll just call it like a codependence, right? Mainland China has relied on the UK for its own export-driven growth and economic stability. UK has relied on China for financing its own long-term British Empire. Ever since, slightly after the days of Colonel Drake. But it's been a love-hate relationship, I think, is a good way to characterize it. It can range from good, when times are good, to I mean, just downright awful in terms of, maybe everybody has that friend who's in that terrible relationship that they just won't get out of. Look at the Opium Wars. You had uh, some borderline inhumane, no, not even borderline, like forcing opium addiction upon the Chinese masses because of a silver shortage on the UK banking systems part. Basically, if you go back, you look at the supply lines, international trade, everything. China didn't want anything the UK had to produce. They wanted its silver. They wanted the New World silver that had really been uh, discovered and expropriated for the European powers out of the Americas. That led to a rise in I guess silver inflation in terms of the monetary stock. And it turned out, well, the UK and Europe's insatiable appetite for Chinese porcelain, silks, manufactured goods of the 1600s, let's say 1800s. Um, all they wanted from the New World was silver. And once that new stock of, I'm just shortening the story here into the TLDR version. As always, there's going to be more complexities in this. But as soon as that New World silver supply ran out, China or the UK realized they had a problem, and they needed to fill it with a new product to introduce into the Chinese market. That product was opium. Very similar rhyme and such to what you see in the U.S. today, in my opinion, with the fentanyl problem that is hitting the U.S. So obviously, China didn't like it. It was kind of, as we said, in that relationship of codependence. It couldn't, or the sovereign state couldn't survive without the international trade mainly out of southern China, and that relationship with through the UK as middleman, and its engagement with external consumption markets, right? So ship its tea, Chinese porcelain, silk, etc. And that led to basically the Opium Wars, as China itself, the governing leadership tried to fight back and basically stop this drug addiction pandemic. As in the mid 1800s, there were two of them. That led to all-out war, right, and ultimately ended in a full defeat of the Chinese government at the time, and they really kickstarted that what Mao called the century of humiliation, right? That ended with the kind of the nationalist era under the banner of communism, kind of the dominant nationalist paradigm of the time. And then you had the emergence of communism with Chinese characteristics in this modern day CCP. Now, what you're looking at here, the century of humiliation, coming out of that, China isn't necessarily saying, from the standpoint as I read this from the leadership of Xi Jinping, they're not saying we're done with the UK, kind of the way that I think you saw in the communications from the US leadership at Davos. When I say done with the UK, I mean done with globalism, right? China is more dependent on globalism, but what it's saying now, and my read, is we're going to now be the central role. And as it nets out, what I view this as is basically mainland China, government out of Beijing, willing to acquiesce and be the hot swap, if you will, for the U.S., which no longer wants to serve as that subservient role as the international currency. So, what this means for China in the next decades and the rest of the 21st century, like, this is a defining decision. But for the U.S.'s standpoint, like, it's going a totally different route. And then this other story you see from Russia is also a very interesting signal, because what did we used to see? In prior, it was really tight coupling between Russia and China, and basically solidarity on the giant land island that is the continent of Asia. So I think the takeaway from this week, there is a lot to be seen, but don't assume that all the partnerships are set, I guess, until it's all said and done.